Okay, so you know how sometimes it feels like you're just drowning in information
Yeah.
and you just want someone to like cut through the noise and just give you the core of what you really need to know.
Exactly.
Well, that's what we're doing today. We're
Yeah.
diving into something that's like low-key shaping our whole digital world in ways that we don't even realize.
Absolutely.
Like how recommendations pop up online or what kind of content just like grabs our attention.
Yeah.
It's all about bias in computing innovations.
Right. And it's everywhere.
So to really unpack this, we're going to turn to this super straightforward YouTube video.
Okay.
It's called APCSP 531 Computing Bias
Okay.
by Jason Hahn.
Got it.
He's with Abington Senior High School.
Okay.
And this is basically like our gift to you.
Yeah.
We're giving you the distilled essence of this video without you having to watch the whole thing.
Definitely.
So our mission today is to really break down like how these biases sneak into the tech we use every single day. And we're gonna use Jason's examples as our roadmap.
Makes sense.
Because, you know, as technology just like becomes more and more woven into like our daily lives,
Yeah.
it's really important to like understand the forces that are shaping it.
It is.
Right. So okay, let's get down to brass tacks.
Sure.
What does bias in computing actually mean?
Yeah.
So Jason starts out by pointing out that a lot of these innovations like basically just mirror the biases we already have as humans.
Uh-huh. Right.
They're reflections of us.
Right. And this can happen in a couple of like key ways.
Okay.
We either like straight up code those biases into the algorithms themselves,
Right.
or they kind of like subtly seep in through the data that the system learns from.
It's like you're baking a cake.
Yeah.
If you start with like bad ingredients
Right.
or like messed up instructions,
Yeah.
the cake is going to be a disaster.
Exactly.
And it's the same with data.
yeah.
You feed the system biased information, you're going to get biased results.
Yeah.
Totally. And he kicks things off with an example that like I think everyone can relate to.
Okay.
Netflix.
Netflix.
They collect so much data on us, right?
They do.
What we watch, the
Right.
ratings we give,
Mhm.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
But then there's all this like behind the scenes data too. Like
Right.
how quickly we click on certain shows,
Mhm.
how long we actually watch them for.
That's right.
And what's interesting is what Netflix does with all that information.
Yeah.
They use it to like suggest what we might like.
Sure.
But they also make this like very deliberate choice to feature their own original content,
Oh yeah.
like front and center.
That's true.
So like if you're scrolling through, you know, action movies,
Yeah.
you're probably going to see a bunch of Netflix originals right at the top.
Right.
And Jason points this out, like Netflix is pretty open about this.
Uh-huh.
It's a strategy.
Yeah.
They want to keep people subscribed,
Keep them hooked.
right?
Yeah.
So showing off their exclusive stuff is a big part of that.
Sure, if you get like invested in a show
Right.
that's on Netflix,
Uh-huh.
you're more likely to keep paying for it.
Exactly. And it's like, you know, it makes sense from a business perspective,
Yeah.
right? But it does kind of make you think like,
Uh-huh.
is this like constant bombardment of Netflix originals?
Yeah.
Could it be subtly influencing what people think is like good or popular?
Right.
Like, are we missing out on all this other great stuff?
Potentially.
Because we're so focused on what Netflix is pushing,
It's possible.
right? So it's just something to think about.
It is.
Now, Jason then moves on to like a more hypothetical,
Okay.
but like potentially problematic scenario.
Right.
A loan company using software to decide who gets approved for a loan.
Okay. Yeah.
So imagine this software is analyzing all this data from past loans,
Uh-huh.
trying to find like patterns for success, right?
Right.
But here's where it gets really trippy.
Okay.
What if the algorithm starts linking loan success
Yeah.
with like totally unrelated factors?
Yeah.
Like, just for example, someone's name is John,
Yeah.
or they're over a certain age.
Okay.
Like just random stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the software is looking for connections,
Yeah,
but it's finding ones that don't really mean anything.
exactly. And as Jason points out, this could have some really bad consequences.
Uh-huh.
Like people who are totally capable of repaying a loan,
Yeah.
they could get denied
Right.
based on like their age or their gender or even their ethnicity.
Superficial stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Things that have zero to do with their actual financial situation.
Right. Their ability to pay.
Exactly. And this is where the people designing these systems,
Yeah.
they have a huge responsibility,
They do.
right? Jason really emphasizes this.
Uh-huh.
Software engineers, they need to be actively working to like minimize this kind of bias.
Yeah.
The goal shouldn't be to like accidentally recreate all of society's problems in code,
Right.
right? It should be to build systems that are actually fair.
That evaluate people based on relevant information.
Exactly. So like in the loan example,
Yeah.
the software should be looking at someone's financial history,
Your credit score.
right? Not their name or their background.
Absolutely.
And this idea of like bias creeping in at different stages,
Yeah.
it's super important.
It is.
It's not just about the data you feed into the system.
Right.
It's also about how the algorithm is structured.
How it's designed.
Right, and what factors it like prioritizes.
Relaxing.
So Jason then kind of shifts gears a bit,
Okay.
and he starts talking about how bias can show up in terms of like who the software is actually designed for,
Interesting.
either intentionally or not.
Okay.
And he uses this great analogy.
Uh-huh.
He talks about casual games versus like sweaty games,
I like that.
right? So think about like Candy Crush
Candy Crush. Okay.
versus something like Call of Duty,
Right. Much different.
right? Totally different vibes.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is like Call of Duty, they're not trying to like specifically exclude people.
You're right. Yeah.
They want as many players as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
But the way the game is designed,
Yeah.
the sound effects, the music, like the fast-paced action,
Mm-hmm.
it just naturally appeals to a certain type of player.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like the design is kind of catering to a specific market segment.
Subconsciously almost.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas like a casual game like Candy Crush,
Right.
it uses totally different cues.
Yeah.
Like those like satisfying sounds when you make a match
Oh, yeah.
and the like the bright colors.
Yeah.
It appeals to a much wider audience.
Definitely.
Right. So neither game is like actively saying you're not welcome,
Right.
but their design choices just naturally attract different types of people.
Different demographics.
Right. And this idea of like tailoring to a specific market,
Yeah.
that can actually create a form of bias too.
How so?
Like think about social media platforms.
Right.
YouTube Kids,
Yeah.
very specifically designed for kids.
Makes sense.
Right. And then you've got platforms like Facebook.
Facebook.
It's still huge.
Yeah.
But its user base tends to be a bit older these days.
Okay.
While platforms like Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok,
Yeah.
with all their like quick videos and visual stuff,
Uh-huh.
they tend to resonate more with younger users.
Definitely.
It's not that older people can't use TikTok.
Right.
It's just that the features and the overall culture of the platform,
Yeah.
it kind of naturally attracts a certain demographic.
For sure.
And Jason also brings up this interesting point about like regional specificity.
Okay.
He mentions WeChat in China and Kakao Talk in Korea.
Interesting.
These aren't just like basic messaging apps.
Right.
They're like deeply integrated into people's lives in those countries, offering all these features that are tailored to their specific needs and preferences.
Like what kind of features?
Like WeChat has this huge payment system built into it,
Oh, wow.
which is like super convenient in China.
I bet.
So technically anyone could download these apps,
Yeah.
but their design and the features they prioritize,
Yeah.
they're heavily influenced by their main user base,
Right.
their target market.
Exactly. So it might not be as intuitive or useful
Yeah,
for someone outside those regions.
it's about who they're designed for.
Right. So we've talked about all these different ways bias can show up.
We have.
What are the key questions we should be asking ourselves
Yeah, that's important.
when we encounter a new computing innovation?
Good question.
Jason gives us some really helpful ones.
Okay, I'm listening.
He says we should ask, is this innovation making things better for a particular group?
Okay.
Or is it actively leaving other people out?
Right.
Is it designed to be harmful or discriminatory?
Uh-huh.
And this is a big one. Are we getting feedback from a wide range of people
It's crucial.
who might actually use this technology?
Yeah, diversity of perspectives is so important.
It is, right? Because it helps us uncover those biases
Right.
that might have been like unintentionally built into the system.
Exactly. You need to look beyond your own assumptions
Right.
and see how other people experience things.
Absolutely. And Jason wraps up with this really great example.
Voice assistant.
Like Google Home and Alexa.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So early on, there was a lot of criticism
Yeah.
about how they had trouble understanding people with accents.
I remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to think about like why that was.
Uh-huh.
It's likely because those early versions,
Yeah.
they were mostly trained on data from people speaking standard American English.
Okay.
So the algorithms just hadn't been exposed to like
Right.
the natural variations you find in different accents.
It wasn't intentional exclusion,
Right. It wasn't like a deliberate choice.
but a limitation of the data.
Exactly. It was just a limitation of the data they were trained on.
Makes sense.
But the good news is,
Yeah.
as Jason points out,
Uh-huh.
these systems have gotten way better
They have.
at understanding a wider range of accents.
That's great.
And they support way more languages now.
Good.
So it shows that these limitations can be overcome
Yeah.
with more inclusive data
Yeah.
and thoughtful design.
It's a process of learning and refining.
Totally.
Yeah.
So just to recap from our deep dive into Jason Han's insights,
Yeah.
we've seen that bias is definitely present in computing innovations.
It's there.
It can be in the algorithms themselves,
Right.
in the data that's used to train them,
Yeah,
even in the design choices that cater to certain groups.
absolutely.
And the bottom line is, we need to be aware of this,
We do.
right? Whether those biases are intentional or not,
Uh-huh.
because it's not just about fairness.
It's about creating technology that works for everyone.
Exactly. It's about making sure the technology is actually beneficial for everyone.
A wide range of users.
Right. So here's a final thought for you to chew on.
Okay.
Think about all the digital tools you use every single day.
Yeah.
Beyond the examples we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
what are some subtle ways bias might be present in those tools?
Mm.
And what role do we have as users
Yeah,
in like noticing those biases and bringing them to light?
that's a good question.
Right.
Something to ponder.
It's definitely something to ponder.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll catch you next time.
See you then.